It is 2023, and I feel like most of my friends are working second jobs these days. And by second jobs, I mean they're playing some multiplayer game. For some, it can be a form of expression, escapism, a hobby. For others, it's a chore, a grind. The raids, the daily quests, the timed events, the rewards, the sense of commitment. In fact, it all sounds like a second job. And honestly, the whole thing kind of freaks me out a bit. Specifically, the commitment thing. Online gaming has taken on a life of its own, and I mean that literally, as many games are ongoing, never-ending endeavors. Now, ironically, the current state of it all has kind of left me feeling a little disconnected from the online gaming world. But while I felt lost in its translation, maybe I was never speaking its language in the first place, or maybe not the way they had intended. All right, thank you. So first, I want to start off by breaking down how I identify multiplayer games, which is in two distinct pillars. First is the competitive. The Counter-Strikes, the StarCrafts, the MOBAs, that whole deal. The second is games as a service. Destiny, Grand Theft Auto Online, Sea of Thieves, Warframe, I'd even say MMORPGs like WoW and FF14 fall there. One thrives on competition when the other thrives on the addition of content. Get f***ed. These games can be competitive, but it's likely the new content that keeps players coming back. There's overlap in both, especially for stuff like skins and all the prestige stuff. I've dabbled in both. I've hit level 80 with my Torn Druid in WoW, and I know that you run faster with a knife in Counter-Strike. But the thing is, I still haven't ever really felt like I fit into either one of them, despite having tried, and I mean tried. But this has also been a feeling I've had since, well, games even went online. When games went online, no longer was I challenged to my friends in the comfort of a musty basement, but instead to the rest of the world. Skill ceilings were capped, games were learned, even exploited as player bases exploded. Games that were once designed for 4 players in a room sitting together suddenly had to apply to millions. And naturally, that meant a need for player expression. Gamer cards, tags, scores, loot, badges, dances. Now, for the record, I loved competing against my friends in games like Tekken, Smash, and Halo, just to name a few. But when games transitioned online, even when playing with those exact same friends, the conversation became less about the environment we were sharing and more about our stats, our ranking. The transition from competing with a friend on a couch to sitting alone playing against nameless, faceless people changed my relationship with what playing games with others meant. It became more about scores, your badge, your fit, your ranking, your gear. And in a way, that's where I think most of these games actually exist. Not in the gameplay itself, but in the menu screens. When before, the game existed in the room you were in, with the people around you, and probably some terribly unhealthy eating habits like Monster Energy drinks and Twizzlers. The stats, the loot, the checkboxes became the focus, the routine, hitting that daily and being rewarded for it, showing up for the events, the second job. Now, I'm not really criticizing it because I do think there's fun and value, even a meditation in how online games have culturally developed. It's just that I've always struggled to fit into it, to want to be a part of that routine or lifestyle. It's just why I've considered myself to never really be an online gaming dude, or maybe I just wasn't playing them right, or the right ones for that matter. What I really needed was a game to recapture the feeling of just being with friends. It was never about the competition. It was never about the objectives even. It was about having a space to share. And the game that really made me understand this was Phasmophobia. If you're not familiar, Phasmophobia is a 4-player co-op investigation game where you and your friends have to go into a haunted house and use a wide array of tools to identify the ghost that is haunting it. It can be absolutely terrifying. But it's also an unintentional masterpiece in jank. So much so that it has, to me, cemented itself as an important part of the game's identity. It's like a beauty mark that should absolutely never be changed. And it is there that my friends and I have found our most cherished moments, which was often the game's safe house or on the truck between sprints into the haunted areas. And this sort of way of interacting with each other started to carry over to other games, some more unsuspecting, like Left 4 Dead 2. Left 4 Dead 2 is a masterclass in its simplicity from combat to objectives to design. But between levels, my crew had developed a way to end our sessions that sometimes lasted as long as the levels themselves did. In so many ways, it was in these moments when we were playing the game in ways that, well, didn't feel like we were playing the game at all, that it was a flashback to a similar feeling that I felt when playing games with my friends in a basement. Games, more than any other medium, transcend their genre because they are, in their nature, an extension of how we interact with them. They are playthings, as reductive as I think that can sound sometimes. But I think when it comes to the multiplayer experience, for me, it's not that I was ever looking for connection or to compete. I was looking for a playground. And some games have taken that a little bit more literal than others. Games like Tower Unite. Tower Unite is an anomaly, especially in the point that I'm trying to make. It is, to me, almost a cartoon version of a games as service, a cacophony of games and concepts smashed into a theme park free for players to explore, interact, and express themselves. It has an in-game currency like any modern online game, but there's no microtransactions. You earn it simply just by doing, well, anything. You can customize yourself with skins uploaded by users. It has a leveling system, but I don't know what it's for. There's in-game events, but rarely do I ever know when or why they're happening, nor do I care. What I do care about is that I can hang out at the bowling alley for hours with my friends, even if that means we're not bowling at all, and instead making what I can only describe as art. It is an enigma of ideas, and probably the most important multiplayer game I've ever played, if not the most successful metaverse game I've ever played. The thing is, when I step back and I take a look at my time with Phasmophobia, Tower Unite, and Left 4 Dead 2, what I realize is that these multiplayer games are the games that I've spent the most time playing this year. And it sure isn't for the new content that's being added to them, or the daily quests, or the loot, or the timed events, or the season passes. So let that sink in for you. Plenty of online games have come and gone for me, even plenty of good ones that I played with friends. But the lasting feeling was rarely ever the game itself. It was never the gear, the loot, the ranking, or even the objectives, but the people I was with. I also know that not everyone is in as much of a position to play with their friends or have a consistent crew, because I have been in that position. That's why I would never criticize anyone for the types of games they play online, because I also know that sometimes people play games online just to exist in a space around other people, even if that means they're not directly interacting with them. Everyone is different, and their needs and their expectations are going to be specific to them. But for me, when I take a step back in our year 2023, a year in time in which I thought I had never been so disconnected from online gaming, in actuality, I was just looking in the wrong place, and likely for the wrong reasons. Where we dropping, boys? That's what the kids say, right? I think.